The wagon sat crooked in snow like a broken spine, one wheel spinning lazy circles in the wind. Jacob Hart had learned to ignore things that weren't his problem. 38 winters on the frontier taught a man that curiosity killed more than cats. But the wheel kept spinning, and something in that motion, persistent, futile, pulled him from his path. The blizzard had teeth. It bit through his coat, through skin, down to the bone-deep cold that made men stupid. He should have ridden past. Instead, he dismounted, boots crunching through drifts, and peered inside the tilted wagon bed. A woman lay there, frost rhyming her dark hair, her eyes opened, startling blue against death-pale skin. One hand clutched a bundle wrapped in a blood-stained shawl. The bundle moved. "Please." Her voice scraped like wind through dead grass. "Clearwater Valley. My mama." Jacob saw the child then, 5 years old, maybe, blue lips, but breathing. Watching him with eyes too old for that small face. "Promise me." The woman's fingers locked around his wrist with impossible strength. "Take her to my mama." He tried to pull away. Promises were chains, and he'd sworn off chains 5 years back when he'd buried his own family. But those blue eyes, the child's eyes, held him. "I promise," he heard himself say. The woman's grip loosened. Her breath stopped. Just like that, gone between one moment and the next. The way Sarah had gone. The way Lucy had gone. The way everyone left if you loved them. The child didn't cry. She just stared at him. Frost-nipped fingers emerging from the shawl. Her hand found his thumb, gripped it, trusting. Jacob wrapped her in his coat. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, just a heartbeat against his chest and those watching eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma." Behind them, wolves howled. The sound carried across the white emptiness, promising that death wasn't done with this frozen night. Jacob swung into the saddle, Emma tucked inside his coat, and rode toward the distant lights of Cedar Ridge. He'd made a promise. God help them both. The stairs hit before they even reached the livery, women's mouths tightening, men's hands drifting toward holsters. Cedar Ridge wasn't much, 50 buildings, 200 souls, all watching each other's business because there wasn't enough of their own to fill the days. Jacob felt their eyes tracking him down Main Street, questions building like pressure before a storm. He needed supplies, information. 3 weeks to Clearwater Valley through territory that killed white men for sport. He needed to know if this child's grandmother even existed. The general store smelled of coffee and kerosene. The woman behind the counter, Ruth, he'd met her once, years back, watched him with careful neutrality. "Need trail supplies," Jacob said. "Heading north, Clearwater Valley. You know it?" Ruth's eyes flicked to Emma, then back. 3 weeks hard riding, Sioux country. The woman said her mama lives there. Margaret something. Brennan. Ruth's voice dropped. Margaret Brennan. Still alive. Far as I know. Sarah. Emma's voice. Small, but clear. My mama was Sarah. Ruth's face closed like a fist. Before she could speak, boots stomped on the porch. Sheriff Bullard filled the doorway, 40 years old, badge bright, eyes narrow with the certainty of small men given authority. "Where'd you get that child?" "Hart. Found her. Mother died in a wagon wreck. Storm. 15 miles west." "Convenient story." Bullard stepped closer. "Sarah Brennan ran off 6 months ago, unwed, disgraced her family." A crowd gathered. The preacher's wife pushed forward, face pinched with righteous purpose. "That child needs Christian care, proper care, not some drifter." "I'm taking her to her grandmother," Jacob said, like her mother asked. Margaret won't take her." Mrs. Holloway's voice carried satisfaction. "She disowned Sarah. Said the child was devil-born." Emma's hand tightened in Jacob's. He felt her trembling. Bullard reached for Emma. "Girl stays here until we sort this proper." Jacob saw it then, the way the sheriff's eyes slid to Mrs. Holloway, the way power worked in small towns. They'd take Emma, place her with some respectable family, and Sarah's last wish would die with her body in the snow. He made his choice in a heartbeat. Jacob swept Emma onto his hip, kicked over a barrel of apples, and ran for his horse. Shouts erupted. A gunshot cracked, warning or threat. Didn't matter. He was already mounted. Emma clutched against him, spurring toward the mountains. Behind them, Cedar Ridge roared to life. The posse was forming. "Are they coming?" Emma whispered. Jacob looked back at the dust cloud. "Yeah, but we got a head start." He hadn't lit the stone fireplace in 2 years. Now flames danced shadows across walls, and a child sat wrapped in blankets, watching him like he might disappear. The cabin squatted in a high valley, miles from anywhere. Jacob had built it to escape memory. Every log he'd cut, every nail he'd driven, was meant to seal away the past. It hadn't worked. The ghosts had just moved in with him, quiet and cold. Now Emma sat in Lucy's chair, eating beans from Lucy's bowl, and the ghosts scattered like smoke. He wasn't good at this, fathering. He'd failed at it once already, been away working when the fever came. Rode 3 days straight to find his wife holding their daughter's body, both of them cold. Sarah had blamed him with her eyes before the grief took her too. 2 graves, 1 spring, a man who couldn't keep his family safe. "You're burning the beans," Emma said. Jacob jerked the pot off the fire. Right, living children needed feeding. They ate in silence. Emma was careful, deliberate, like she'd learned early not to expect second chances. When she finished, she looked at him with those 2 old eyes. What was her name? He knew she meant his daughter. Maybe kids could smell grief the way dogs smelled fear. Lucy. "Did you keep your promise to her?" The question landed like a punch. Jacob stared at the fire, throat tight. "I was working far away when the fever came. Got back too late." Emma absorbed this. Then, "You're here now." Simple words, absolution from a 5-year-old. Jacob felt something crack in his chest. He found his knife, a piece of soft pine. His hands remembered the motion, carving a small horse, rough but recognizable. Lucy had loved horses. Emma watched, fascinated, as the shape emerged. "For you," he said, offering it. Emma took it like it was made of glass. "Thank you, Papa." She stopped, face going red. "Sorry." "I mean, it's fine," Jacob said, voice rough. But it wasn't fine. It was a hook in his heart, pulling him back to life. Emma fell asleep in the chair, horse clutched in her fist. Jacob stood to bank the fire and saw them through the window, fresh tracks in the snow, circling the cabin. Someone had followed them. He loaded his rifle and kept watch through the night. She made him say the names of things: tree, sky, coffee, happy. That last one stuck in his throat. 3 weeks passed. The posse hadn't found them yet. But Jacob knew Bullard. The man was patient. He'd wait for spring when the passes cleared, then come with force. Meanwhile, Emma filled the cabin with life. She sang songs Sarah had taught her. She asked questions about everything: why snow melted, where deer slept, how clouds knew when to rain. She drew pictures with charcoal on scrap paper, crude stick figures labeled "Mama in Heaven." Me, Jacob. Jacob taught her to track deer, read weather, split kindling, basic survival. Emma taught him to laugh again, though it sounded rusty coming out of him. But supplies ran low. He needed to risk town. He went at night, hood pulled low, to Ruth's store. She was alone, sweeping by lamplight. When she saw him, she quickly locked the door. "You're a damn fool coming here. Need food, information." Ruth gathered goods, jerky, flour, coffee, beans. "Bullard's got a posse, 6 men, says you're dangerous." "I'm not." "I know." Ruth's face softened. But Sarah wasn't just running from shame, Jacob. She was running from someone, man named Calhoun, rich rancher, Emma's father. Jacob's blood went cold. He coming for her? Not out of love, out of pride. Can't have folks knowing he got a girl pregnant, and she refused him. Ruth leaned close. "What happens when you get to Clearwater?" Margaret Brennan's stone-hearted. She might not take Emma. The question Jacob had been avoiding. A promise is a promise. Even if it breaks that child's heart again? He didn't have an answer. Back at the cabin, Emma had made dinner, bread and jam, proud as any chef. "When do we go to Grandma's?" Jacob looked at her shining face and couldn't speak. The promise that had saved her might just deliver her to another rejection. That night, Emma had nightmares. She cried for her mother, raw. Broken sounds. Jacob held her awkwardly, sang a half-remembered lullaby. Sarah used to sing Lucy. Emma calmed against his chest. "You smell like pine," she whispered. "Mama smelled like roses." "I'm not your mama," Jacob said. "I know." Emma's hand found his. "You're different. You're here." He held her until she slept, and watched the stars through the window, and wondered what the hell he was doing. The nightmare came 3 nights running, and on the 3rd, Emma finally told him what she'd been carrying. "Mama didn't just get lost," she said, voice small. "We were running." They sat by the fire, tin cups of weak coffee between them. Outside, spring fought winter, sun during the day, frost at night. The creek ice cracked with sounds like gunshots. "Running from what?" Jacob asked, though he already knew. "Him, Calhoun." Emma's hands shook. "He came to our house, said I was his, said Mama had to give me to his wife because his wife couldn't have babies. Mama said no. He hit her." Jacob's jaw clenched. "How many times?" "I don't know. She grabbed me. We ran. The wagon." Emma's voice broke. "It was too cold. She was hurt. I couldn't help her. You survived. That's what she wanted." Emma looked at him with ancient eyes. "Calhoun said I was bad. Am I bad?" "No." Jacob pulled her close. "Fierce. Men who hurt children, they're bad." "You're brave. So are you." He almost believed her. Later, Emma drew a new picture. 3 stick figures. Mama in heaven. Me, Jacob. Title, My Family. Jacob stared at it. He could run, disappear into Canada, start over, avoid the fight coming. But Emma had already lost too much. "I'm going to teach you something," he said. He showed her how to hold his rifle, how to sight, how to breathe steady. "You protect yourself, always." Emma practiced, serious as death. Then she said, "Now, you learn from me." "What?" "How to pray. Mama said God listens when you're scared." Jacob hadn't prayed in 5 years, but he knelt with Emma, hands folded, and listened to her small voice asking for safety, for strength, for her mama to be proud. "Amen," Emma said. "Amen," Jacob echoed, and felt something like hope. A late snow trapped them overnight in a forest shelter. Huddled by fire, Emma asked, Are you my papa now? Silence stretched. Jacob thought of Lucy, of failing her, of Sarah trusting him with her last breath, of Emma's hand in his. "If you'll have me," he said, voice breaking. Emma nodded and fell asleep against his shoulder. They returned to the cabin at dawn. Ruth waited on the porch, face grave. "Margaret Brennan died," Ruth said. 2 months back. The world tilted. The promise, gone, no destination, no plan. "And they followed me," Ruth whispered. "Posse's a day behind." They came with the mist. 8 riders spreading in a half-circle, rifles ready. Jacob had prepared for this. Rifle loaded. Emma hidden in the root cellar. Escape route planned. But seeing them, Bullard's hard face, the strange, well-dressed man who had to be Calhoun, turned his blood to ice. Jacob Hart. Bullard's voice carried across the clearing. "Surrender the child. Nobody needs to get hurt." Jacob stepped onto the porch. "She's not yours to take." Calhoun dismounted, 50 years old, expensive coat, eyes like coins. "I'm Thomas Calhoun. That's my daughter you're keeping. She's nobody's property. Law says different." Calhoun smiled without warmth. "I'm her father. Blood right." Ruth emerged from the cabin, hands raised. "Tom, listen. Stay out of this, Ruth. You married an Indian. Lost your say in civilized matters." Ruth's face went hard. Jacob felt rage building. Calhoun pulled out a money pouch. $500. "Walk away. She's not for sale." "Then you're a criminal." Calhoun nodded to Bullard. The sheriff drew his gun. "Last chance. Hart." From inside, Emma's voice rang out. "I won't go." She stood in the window, Jacob's rifle aimed steady, not at anyone, just held ready. Her face showed the same determination Jacob had seen when she'd nursed him. Carved wood, refused to leave him in the canyon. "That's my daughter," Calhoun said. "My blood." "Blood doesn't make family," Emma said. "Jacob does. He keeps promises." Calhoun's mask cracked. "Take her." Bullard moved. Jacob fired. Warning shot. Kicking up dirt. Return fire erupted. A bullet caught Jacob's shoulder, spinning him back. Pain exploded. Hot and bright. "No!" Emma's scream. Ruth ran to him. In the chaos, Jacob grabbed Emma, stumbled to the back door where horses waited. Ruth had planned for this, always planning. They rode hard, blood soaking Jacob's shirt. Behind them, Calhoun's voice, "Find them." The mountains swallowed them. Snow returned at altitude. Spring was a lie. Jacob's vision blurred. They reached a narrow canyon. Defensible, but a trap. He collapsed against cold stone. "If I don't make it," he gasped. "Find Fort Mason. Tell them." "No." Emma pressed her shawl to his wound, tears streaming. "You promised. You don't break promises." Jacob tried to answer, but darkness took him. Emma's fierce face was the last thing he saw. Fever took him to places where Lucy still lived, where Sarah thanked him, where Emma vanished because he'd failed again. 3 days bled together. Jacob surfaced in fragments, Emma's small hands changing bandages, her voice singing lullabies, the taste of snow melt water. He tried to tell her to run, save herself, find someone better. She ignored him. "I fail everyone," he mumbled in delirium. "You're here," Emma said, crying. "That's not failing. That's staying." On the 3rd day, hoofbeats echoed through the canyon. Emma grabbed the rifle. Then Ruth's voice. "Emma." Ruth appeared, riding hard, saddlebags full of supplies. She knelt beside Jacob, opened his shirt, examined the wound. "Infected." but survivable. You came back, Emma whispered. Family comes back, Ruth said simply. She worked through the night, cleaning, packing herbs, forcing Jacob to drink bitter medicine. By dawn, his fever broke. He woke to Emma asleep against him, Ruth keeping watch. She kept you alive, Ruth said. 3 days. That child didn't sleep more than an hour at a time. Jacob looked at Emma's exhausted face, felt her heartbeat against his ribs. His daughter, not by blood, but by choice. There's a way, Ruth said. Circuit Judge Morrison arrives at Fort Mason in 7 days. Fair man. Can override local corruption. If we testify about Calhoun's abuse, get witnesses, he might grant you custody. Legal custody? Jacob's voice rasped. You're already her father. This just makes it official. Protects her from Calhoun's lawyers. Jacob tried to sit up, pain flaring. Can I ride in a week? Can you? He thought of Emma's tears, her fierce refusal to abandon him, of Sarah's trust, of Lucy, who deserved a father who didn't quit. I'll crawl if I have to. Over the next days, Emma became his nurse. She changed bandages with steady hands, rationed food, kept watch. She also carved a second horse, better crafted, smoother lines. She placed it next to Jacob's crude first attempt. Before and after, she said, smiling. Jacob whittled too, strength returning. He made her a small bird. Wings spread. What's this? Emma asked. You, flying free. That's what we're fighting for. Emma hugged him carefully, mindful of his wound. We're gonna make it, Papa. First time she'd said it aloud. Papa. Jacob held her and made a different kind of promise, silent, to himself. He'd see this through, whatever it cost. The river ran high with snowmelt, and on the far bank 8 riders waited, Calhoun in front, patient as a spider. They'd ridden for 6 days. Jacob still weak but upright. Fort Mason lay a mile beyond Sweetwater River, so close. But Calhoun had anticipated their route, positioned his men to block the ford. Turn her over, Calhoun called across the rushing water. You both ride away, rich and breathing. Jacob's horse shifted. Sensing tension, Emma sat before him, straight-backed. No, Jacob said. Then you're a kidnapper. Calhoun nodded to Bullard. Arrest him. The sheriff started forward, Ruth, riding beside them, suddenly whistled, sharp, carrying. From the trees behind them, riders emerged. Henry, who'd lost land to Calhoun's schemes. Maria, whose son Calhoun had framed. Others, a dozen townsfolk. Outcasts and allies Ruth had secretly gathered. We're witnesses, Henry said. All of us. Calhoun's face darkened. This is family business. This is justice business, Ruth said. And we're done letting you hide behind money. Gunshots echoed, not aimed, just noise. But the sound carried to Fort Mason. Within minutes, soldiers arrived, led by a captain in his 50s. Captain Wade took in the scene, armed men, a wounded drifter, a child. His eyes stopped on Emma. Sarah's daughter? His voice cracked. Sarah Brennan's girl? Emma nodded. Wade dismounted, knelt. Your mama saved my daughter 2 years back, pulled her from a flooded creek, nearly drowned herself. He stood, facing Calhoun. And you're the man who beat her. Lies. Calhoun spat. Judge Morrison will decide. Wade said. He's in chambers now. We're having a hearing. Everyone now. The fort's courtroom smelled of tobacco and old paper. Judge Morrison 60, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much, listened to testimonies. Ruth spoke of Sarah's bruises. Henry detailed Calhoun's pattern of abuse and intimidation. Maria described threats. Then Emma testified, small voice, but clear. He hit Mama, said I was his thing. Jacob saved me. Jacob keeps promises. Calhoun's lawyer stood. The child's been brainwashed. I'll hear from Mr. Hart, Morrison said. Jacob rose, shoulder aching. He wasn't good with words, but he thought of Emma sleeping safe, of Lucy's memory blessing this second chance, of Sarah's last trust. I got no money, Jacob said. No name that matters, but I keep my promises, and I promise she'll never be alone, never be hurt, long as I draw breath. Silence filled the room. Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Hart, why should I give you this child? Because she already chose me. I'm just asking the law to catch up with love. Emma stood. He's my papa. He promised my mama. And he stayed. Morrison studied them. Scarred man, fierce child, both battered by life, both refusing to break. Custody granted to Jacob Hart, pending formal adoption proceedings. The gavel fell. Mr. Calhoun, you're under arrest. Assault, intimidation. Sheriff Bullard, you're suspended pending investigation. Emma ran to Jacob. He lifted her, wincing but strong, and held her as she cried. Relief, joy, safety, all of it flooding out, outside. Ruth was crying too. The outcasts celebrated quietly. Justice finally served. Captain Wade approached. Sarah would be proud. Jacob nodded, unable to speak. They'd won, not with guns, but with truth. The cabin didn't look haunted anymore. It looked like someone lived there, really lived, not just survived. 6 weeks later, spring had truly come. Wildflowers covered the valley in color. The creek ran clear and loud. Apple trees Ruth planted were budding. The world felt new. Jacob woke to Emma's voice. Papa, he smiled. She was an early riser now, confident in the kitchen. He found her at the stove, flipping flapjacks with serious concentration. Mail came, Emma said, pointing. Jacob opened the envelope. Official adoption papers. Final. Legal. Forever. He read them aloud, voice catching on the words. Emma Hart, daughter. Does this mean forever? Emma asked. Forever. They ate together, planning the day. Emma had school. Ruth taught her Tuesdays and Thursdays. She was learning to read, write, do sums, making friends slowly. One girl, Mary, had invited her to a birthday party. Progress. After breakfast, they walked to the hillside where Jacob had built a small marker, Sarah's memorial. Emma placed fresh wildflowers at its base. Mama, Emma said softly, we made it, just like you wanted. Jacob kept his promise. She paused. Grandma wasn't there, but Jacob became family instead. I think you knew. I think that's why you asked him. Jacob's hand rested on her shoulder. He didn't speak. Some moments needed silence. Emma looked up. Did we do good? We did our best. That's what she asked. They walked back through wildflowers. Ruth met them at the cabin with supplies and news. The community was changing, slowly, but changing. Some families nodded in town now. Henry had hired Jacob for ranch work, steady money, a future. You found your way back, Jacob, Ruth said. She found me, Jacob replied. I just stopped running. That afternoon, new arrivals came, a man and woman, ragged from travel, a terrified child between them. Running from something, Jacob saw himself 6 months ago. Emma looked at Jacob. He nodded. "Come inside," Emma told the child. "We help." While the adults talked, Emma took the girl to the workbench. "I'll teach you to carve. Jacob taught me. Now I teach you. That's what family does." Jacob watched from the porch, Ruth beside him. 2 children bent over wood, the old teaching the new. The cycle continued. Inside the window, 2 wooden horses sat on the sill, one crude, one smooth, before and after. The garden plot was marked with stakes, ready for planting. Smoke rose straight from the chimney in the still air. The valley had changed. The man had changed. The cabin that once held ghosts now held laughter and hope, and the smell of cooking and Emma's drawings covering every wall. Jacob remembered that howling night, the dying woman's plea, the frost-nipped fingers gripping his thumb. He'd promised to take Emma home. He just hadn't known home was something they'd build together, piece by broken piece, until the walls stood strong and the hearth burned warm and the word Papa meant the man who stayed. Spring wind carried wildflower scent across the valley. Inside, children laughed. Outside, a man who'd been dead for 5 years felt the sun on his face and smiled. He'd kept his promise. They'd both come home. The end.